Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks. A podcast that's not crying. You're crying. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Saturday mornings, are available to download later in your podcast feed. Unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
If it is the same bread van, I swear.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and no matter what happens to our friendship, I hope he never gives me the finger. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
And each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else in the pop culture universe is on. The two movies for today are Banshees of Inisherin, not Banshees of Ed Sheeran, as has been rumored, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. We're going to talk about those today. But how you doing, Andrew? How's stuff going?
Oh, I'm just peachy. How about you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. It has been an interesting week that seems to happen here every year, where we go straight from summer to winter, and I don't know where fall went, but maybe that's the experience you're having as well.
Well, I kind of enjoy it because I've been in my garage welding all day, and it gets so hot that I just open up the garage door and I let this 30-degree air just rush right in, cool me down.
Yeah, that's got to be nice. I had to remember to close the register in the room I record in, because if I don't, the heat will turn this into an oven very, very fast, because it's such a small room. So last night somehow my circuit breaker for the furnace turned off, like it blew the circuit breaker. So I woke up this morning and my house was freezing. So yeah, it's that time of year in the Ozarks, Aaron. Yes, it is.
You know it's going to be 80 degrees next week, you know?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. That tends to be how it works. Well, you didn't come here to hear us talk about weather. You came here to hear us talk about movies. So let's do it. Let's talk a little bit about Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Queen Ramonda, Shuri, M'Baku, Okoye, and the Dora Milaje fight to protect their nation from intervening world powers in the wake of King T'Challa's death. As the Wakandans strive to embrace their next chapter, the heroes must band together with the help of War Dog Nakia and Everett Ross to forge a new path for the kingdom of Wakanda. Marvel bringing us another Black Panther movie in a very precarious way, right? You've got Chadwick Boseman very tragically and publicly passing away. And how do you take a central character, honor the person who brought them to life and who many will say, cannot be replaced? How do you do that at the same time as making a fun, great Marvel movie? That is, a very precarious thing to try to do. If you are going to do it, I do recommend having someone like Ryan Coogler in your pocket to be able to do that. He's obviously an incredible director, and he comes back to do this. Many of the same people you know and love from the Black Panther universe are here. What did you think, Andrew? Overall, did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
It's difficult with a movie like this because, like you said, there is so much baggage that you feel like you immediately have to explain yourself once you give that generalized feeling for the movie. But I'm just going to go ahead and say I liked it. Maybe high side I liked it, but I'll just go liked it.
Yeah, I'm even maybe low side of liked it, but I'm definitely in the liked it camp. And let's just go into it, and we can kind of talk about this movie in a couple different ways, right? Yeah. And I think that's the reason it's maybe so hard to assess a film like this, because if you strip away the outside factors from this film, like if this was just a film Marvel put out because, let's say, Chadwick Boseman just didn't want to play back Black Panther anymore, right? Like let's say that's this movie. I think it's a lot different than the fact that we know this person and we know how much he was loved and how those outside emotions impact what's going on the screen. You can't talk about a movie like this in a vacuum, though. Like you just can't. It has to have that context. So I think it's fair for us to talk about both things. I think both things are equally important to how we assess this movie, how we experienced this movie. And so I don't think it's I don't think it's bad for us to both separate that from it and talk about it in that way, and then talk about how much that does impact, our feelings about the movie as well. So, yeah, I wouldn't feel like you had to walk on eggshells in any way in kind of talking about the flaws or the high points of the movie itself. Shall we start with the Chadwick Boseman of it all and just how the movie incorporates that? How did you feel about how that was handled? How did it work for you? All of that.
I think that Coogler, Feige, and all of them were handed such a unprecedented task that I look at the movie that they did and I go, good job that you were able to make it this good. Does that mean when you take away that element of it and you just look at the movie from a story standpoint, is it just as good? No. I think that the first Black Panther was better. I think that this movie handled specific things with real world ramifications that were handled better than I thought they could have been handled. But still, narratively, there are issues with this movie.
I think from the Chadwick Boseman of it all, I think it was handled almost as well as you can. I can't imagine a better way to handle this. The only other option is just recasting and then dealing with the idea of it's just a different actor in the role. There are certainly many movies that have done that for many different reasons. Yeah. And there are even Marvel characters that have been recast for different reasons. Probably not on this level. I can't think of anyone in the Marvel universe that's been recast on this level, but it can be done. And if that's the option, that's the only other option I go, okay, you maybe could have done that as well. But if you're going this direction, this is about as good as you can do it. And not only that, for me, so much of what I love about this movie is because of my emotions knowing the outside of it, right? There are moments in this movie where the actors are experiencing real, genuine, deep emotion that is tied to how similar the movie is to what happened to them in real life, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, there's this extra level. I talk about loving based on a true story kinds of movies, and this is part of the reason why, because there's this extra level of something when you go, oh, I know that's real, and I can feel it, and I can see it. And I am telling you, I was sobbing at points of this movie. Now, I love emotion. I have no problem crying in movies. I let it flow. I let the sadness flow through you. So I was sobbing at points in this movie, and a couple of specific points. And in so much of that, if not all of it, has to do with the real life circumstances surrounding the movie. I don't take that away from the movie. I think it's not. It didn't feel exploitative to me. It felt like it was handled with care and honor. And it's hard for me not to give the movie a lot of points for how it handled things and how that emotion worked. In my consideration, did the emotion work for you?
I think maybe, yes, I was sad at parts of the movie, but I think I went into this trying to mentally prepare myself for how sad it was going to be, to where, yes, I knew it was sad, but I never cried or anything. I think I just, I don't know what the hyping version of getting ready to cry is called, but I think I hyped myself up so much for how depressing this movie was going to be. But man, it's so difficult because I'm going to say something and I am begging for grace and for some time to explain. I think that the movie was so focused on paying respects to Chadwick Boseman that it missed out on important issues that were left unresolved and kind of just messed with me. I'll explain it here. Again, we're having a conversation. We can jump back and forth between negatives and positives, but I think that because obviously Ryan Coogler had written the script already before Chadwick Boseman had passed away. So I'm looking at this movie and I'm going, okay, you didn't take anything out of the script to make room for your portrayal of how everybody's reacting to King T'Challa dying. Mm-hmm. So you have that on top of the original movie you were trying to release. And when I'm sitting here watching this movie, I'm thinking there's too much going on. There are too many different elements and facets of this movie that I can't care about all of them equally. Because I think the movie should have done one of two things. Either had like a quick memorial at the beginning of the movie for Chadwick, and Chadwick, I mean, as T'Challa, and then moved on to the peril from there. Or scrap this original story entirely and make the entire movie about T'Challa and what it means for the future of Wakanda. I think that they just tried to bite off more. No, they didn't try to bite off. They gave us so much that I just couldn't care about everything. But yeah, I don't know if this is like Kevin Feige saying you have to have Ironheart in this movie. You know, you have to have, and then you have to have Namor, and then you have to have blah 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 blah. You know, so many things because we already have a timeline in place, and we need these characters to be debuted here. So it's unfortunate. I understand the reasoning around it. It's just too much.
I think you are onto something. I don't know that I felt it as strongly as you did, because I do feel like the movie. I didn't feel like the movie was jumbled in its ability to cross tones, cross plots. Like, if there was some sort of reconciliation that was done here with the real world events and an existing script, it seemed pretty fluid to me. At least I didn't feel like the jaggedness of it as I was watching it. And in fact, I feel like the themes of loss and, searching for a purpose after loss actually really play well into the overall themes of this movie. About that, about the idea of, where purpose comes from. It's very similar themes to the first Black Panther, by the way, as far as, how to approach those things. So I did feel like it was integrated well, maybe a little more than you, but I do understand what you're saying.
I should clarify that I think narratively the story flow, like everything makes sense. I mean, there nothing felt out of place. It was just, I think there was too many things for me to keep track of, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. The other thing I will say in the positive column right away is, man, do I love the Dora Milaje, and I love watching them fight. It is some of the coolest action, in my opinion. There's still some of that Marvel stuff where it's a little cut to death at times, but it at least to me feels really cool, and I love those characters. I love how female fronted this entire movie is. It feels really well done. Having said that, M'Baku remains one of my favorite things in Marvel. Winston Duke is so funny to me for whatever reason. I love that guy. Overall, I never had a moment where I was like, I'm so bored with this movie, or where I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't like that. Like, it just felt like this to me felt like a great tribute in a good movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to say it.
Yeah, and it is. I think it is a good movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't even think it's a mediocre movie. I think it's a good movie.
It's a good movie. Movie.
And Ryan Coogler has not let me down. He knows how to make good movies. But it is a great tribute. And I think if you can kind of separate those two things in your mind, it kind of helps process the experience, I think, a little bit better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Letitia Wright, man.
Yeah. Let's talk about Letitia. How do you feel?
I am so proud of her because this isn't what she signed up for initially.
Right.
She was going to be a support character, and now she is thrust into probably one of the biggest profiles in the entire entertainment industry right now. Yeah. And she handled it with professional talent. I mean, she showed me things in this movie I didn't know she could do. And I don't mean physically. I mean like her ability to convey emotion.
Yeah.
I think the fact that a lot of it was real just elevated it. But I think that Letitia, I mean, she stole the movie. It's yes, it is her movie.
I was gonna say it's hard to steal a movie that's yours.
Yeah, it's her movie, but I think that like even when you have such powerhouse performers like Angela Bassett, who is phenomenal in this movie, that she can somebody who was originally cast as a support character, and then she just transfers so well into the center stage that it makes you wonder why she wasn't in like a lead character to begin with. So
yeah, Letitia's great. She's asked to do some stuff that's really complicated, really nuanced, and I think she pulls it off really well. I love all the costuming in this movie. I just I think it's Ruth Carter that does that stuff for the Black Panther movies, and it's just astonishing. And there were several times, especially with Shuri's outfits, where I was just like, and I'm not usually this guy, and I was just like, that is a cool outfit. Like that is, yeah. I love like the hairstyles, the outfits. I love everything this movie is doing in those ways. I like Dominique Thorne as Ironheart. I thought she was really fun. I thought the relationship between Shuri and Riri, was really good. I guess their couple name would be Shuriri. I thought they were fun together. I thought that character was interesting. It became clear pretty quickly that the Ironheart thing is an Iron Man thing, and I don't know that the movie did enough for me to help me understand Riri's love of Iron Man, that she would kind of go that direction. Does it make sense what I'm saying to you? Because it would seem to me, unless she has some sort of connection to the Iron Man idea and that persona or that person, that she would kind of go her own way instead of very clearly being, kind of an Iron Man thing. So maybe I'm being unrealistic with that, but I wanted the movie to help me understand why she was imitating Iron Man's, look and patterns and suit and that kind of thing. So that to me, if I'm going into negatives, was probably a consequence of a symptom of the movie that I think was throughout several things, which was it didn't build out its purpose and character motivation as well as many of these movies often do. I think there were several character motivations that were sold short a little bit for me. Primarily Namor. I feel like Namor's, I think we get some, but I don't think we get enough to justify where this movie eventually goes. I don't think there's enough character exploration for us to fully feel or understand the Shuri Namor relationship at the end. I'm just kind of talking around it. So there were several points this movie where, which is, probably the primary thing why I don't say it's a great movie and say it's a good movie, is because of its inability to really flesh out some of the character motivations.
I really do want to talk about Namor, but before I do, I want to kind of extend off what you were talking about with Riri. Her character is one of the issues of the movie where I'm like, I could see you taking this character out of the story, and it would work even better. Kind of like how I felt, especially, and the big one for me is the whole Martin Freeman character. I think is just wasted time. Like, we don't need to see this character again. He's not adding anything to the story.
I will never, ever in my entire life get used to Martin Freeman with an American accent. It
doesn't sound right.
It throws me every single time. That doesn't mean it's a bad accent either. He's killing it, but it just, my brain can't do it. It's so weird.
Funny enough, him and Benedict Cumberbatch have the same thing. Like, where either of these guys do an American accent. I'm like, I know you too well to where it's just
right. Yeah.
But yeah, now moving on to Namor. I love what they did with the character and making it him and the whole in the comics it is Atlantis, but in this movie it's Talokan. This whole Talokan society is built around this Mesoamerican culture. And I think I love that. So smart, because that's not what it is in the comics at all.
Right. Yeah.
I think it is brilliantly done how they actually, talk about the gods of Mesoamerica, like Shak and Akpuch, and they even call Namor Kukulkan, who these are all real Mesoamerican Mayan and Aztecian gods. And I thought, yeah, why not? Because you have Thor and you have all of these actual different pantheons. Like we even see in Love and Thunder, we see, Zeus, we see all these different gods from all these different cultures. I'm like, yes, build that up. That is so cool. And I think that making it initially the first Black Panther movie was definitely, building up and representing this African culture and, displaying the beauty in it. And I think that the movie does an equally good job displaying the beauty of this South American culture. I think it's done amazingly well. Having said that, I think they spent so much time talking about Namor and not enough time talking about Talokan, because this entire movie they are saying, oh, Talokan is so much more technologically advanced and such a formidable force for Wakanda. Never felt that once. No matter how many times they told me that Talokan was this big, terrible threat, never felt it once. The first time we see, I'm just going to call them Atlanteans from now on. Please forgive me. The first time we see the Atlanteans and they're doing this whole siren trick out in the middle of water on this mining rig or this drilling rig, it's one of the best scenes in the entire movie. Because it builds so much suspense and intimidation, but the movie doesn't go that extra mile, I think, to really show us why we should be afraid of this Atlantean culture.
Yeah.
I think that
I think there's reasons for that.
Oh yeah?
I think there's narrative reasons for that. I think because of what the movie overall is trying to do with the relationship between Wakanda and Talokan is probably why it, because I do feel like the level of difficulty based on where this movie wants to go, without spoiling anything, is very difficult. And because you can't have either the Wakandans or the Talokan be too over the top threatening or intimidating because of what you want to do later in the movie. So, yeah.
Okay. I guess narratively, my only argument would be, well, then don't make that movie, like have it. I understand this is one of the most, like, the Battle of Wakanda is like one of the most famous Marvel stories ever. And, there's a lot of pressure on Coogler to do justice to the battle in Wakanda with Namor and the Atlanteans, or Talokanians.
Is Namor a villain in the comics?
He's an anti-hero. He's gone back and forth. When he was originally created, he was a hero, then he became a villain, and then he's a hero again. He's like married to Sue Storm and stuff like that. So yeah, whole bunch of craziness. I love the design of the character. I think it's so fresh, and that's kind of building off this Mesoamerican culture thing that they're doing here. But they still kept everything about the character himself that was important in this movie. He still has the winged heels. He still has the pointed ears. You know, his design in the comics is very elvish, like not Elvis, Elven, I guess is the better way to say it. But like his suit is more along the lines of something you would see. Actually, his suit in the comics looks so much like the suit of the Deep in The Boys, you know, like just that green, tight spandex-ish. So yeah, I love this redesign, but they kept everything that was important that made him the quote-unquote first mutant. He was the first mutant comic book character. He's just not the first mutant chronologically. Yeah.
Well, what about the performance? What about Tenoch Huerta?
I thought he did a great job, but I think that he was kind of doing he was doing a great job, but narratively the story didn't give him enough to take that character to the next level.
I agree. It was my main issue with the movie. Again, a movie I thought was really good.
Please don't forget. This is a good movie, guys. We liked it.
There's a couple. I honestly don't think we need to do a sip spoil on this. There's not enough there to really talk about. There are a couple moments that may surprise you, cameos, plot movements. I found all those
strange.
To be. I found them to be actually pretty good. I liked them. I thought it was a pretty natural way to move the story where it needed to go. So yeah, there was one.
You're talking about what I would call the dark side Sith Lord.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You know, I think that's a great way to say it non-spoilerishly, and you know exactly what the other person's talking about.
There was a Martin Freeman, Everett Ross angle of things where we get another cameo character that is a major part of that. For all I know, is in the trailer. I have no idea. But
actually, no.
Oh, good for them.
The one thing that wasn't in the trailer is like the one thing I'm like, you could have cut that out of the movie. That whole thing.
It really could have been cut out. I'm not sure why we needed that, other than Marvel's got plans, right? It really did feel like one of those moments where it's like, okay, Marvel doing Marvel. I get you're trying to
sequels.
You're trying to tease sequels, build up characters throughout the threads of other movies, which, by the way, works. It works on us.
It works, but
for this movie, it doesn't make sense. For this movie, it doesn't need to be there. It could be cut out. For the whole Marvel project, okay, Feige, do your thing. But you can kind of feel those threads being thread through a little forcefully for my taste.
Yeah.
But yeah, any final thoughts?
There was a mid-credit scene, but no post-credit scene.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of people say that this was the best mid-credit scene Marvel has ever done.
Well, I think it's. I think there's again an emotional aspect to that, and it really was like when I had finally stopped crying, the movie wanted me to cry again.
It tugs at your heartstrings for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Just because you don't get waterworks doesn't mean you don't feel it. But no, I would 100% recommend this movie.
Me too. Me as well. My one final thing is just Ryan Coogler's amazing. I don't know of any other director that could have taken this level of difficulty of a movie and put together such a great experience with it. So yeah.
Over time, I would say that I make this my one last thing. Ryan Coogler has finally figured out how to shoot action. Because if you look at the first Black Panther movie and how like Gumby all the fight scenes, especially at the very end of that movie, are, and then you look at the battle in Wakanda and how many practical effects were done and how they were shot in slow motion, it's a beautifully shot action sequence. I think that he has come a long way And he's just adding more things to his repertoire of like things that make him an amazing director. And every single time I thought about this movie, like as I was leaving the theater, I was like, I should really watch Fruitvale Station. Everybody
says
really
it's an amazing movie. It's so good. It's so good. Well, there you go. Thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Big recommend from both of us. The movie works so well on so many levels, and definitely worth a watch. All right, let's move into the next movie. Let's talk about Banshees of Inisherin. Two lifelong friends, Banshee and Silver Banshee, find themselves at an impasse when one abruptly ends their relationship with alarming consequences for both of them. That's a shout out to our Sif Pop members who will get that reference.
I'm going to ask you an honest question and I want an honest answer. Did you tell that joke because you don't know how to pronounce these characters' names?
The character names are not in my synopsis, and I will not be saying them today.
You're just going to say Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson?
I am absolutely going with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. If you want to give it a shot, I am all for it. I just know I am not up to the task.
No.
So this is Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell, and teaming up with Martin McDonagh. And that's something that hasn't happened since a movie we both love, in Bruges.
It is in the top 100 movies of all time.
So, Barry Keoghan is in there, Carrie Condon as well. What did you think of this tale of breaking up? Andrew, did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I should, again, my bias up front, absolutely love Martin McDonagh. I love all of his movies, and I love this one too. I absolutely love this one.
Yeah.
You?
I loved it as well. Maybe low side I loved it, but I love this movie.
I have been mentally preparing myself all day for you to say that you didn't like this movie.
No.
Because I know that we have such a different appreciation for both Seven Psychopaths, which I absolutely love, but especially Three Billboards. I know you're not a fan of.
No, I think Three Billboards is a bad movie. I don't get the love for Three Billboards. We've had that discussion. We don't need to have it again.
I'm just trying to, history going into this. That's kind of like where my headspace is. Sure. I'm like, okay, I'm just preparing myself for him to hate a movie I love.
I'm just going to say this one thing, and then I'm going to let you cook for a little bit because I know you have things to say. But for me, this movie does right everything that Three Billboards does wrong. There is a pathos to this movie. The movie gives me someone to identify with, gives me someone to walk alongside of as it is exploring a very dark understanding of what it means for people to break up. And we don't often think of friendships as something that that has to be a breakup, but it is, and relationships end, whether they are romantic or friend or whatever. And this movie has a very nihilistic view of how that happens, but it also gives me someone to find my way in. So that to me is why I come away from this being able to love it, because I think thematically it's just so much deeper and more interesting when you have both sides of the coin trying to figure out what's going on in the story. So yeah, there's my kind of start as to why I ended up loving this one. But yeah, go off, man. Tell me about how amazing this movie is.
It is truly an amazing movie. One of my favorites of the year. I think that I hope that you understand this this comparison, but this movie reminded me so much of Mother with Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison. You're going to have to explain that one to me.
I think because this movie, just like Mother, for this specific reason, not as a whole, I could see people coming away from this movie just like they did with Mother, having a completely different understanding of what they thought the metaphors in this movie were trying to tell them.
Okay.
Because
there's not a lot of metaphor in this movie. It's a fairly straight narrative. There's a lot of themes. There's a lot of interesting thoughts, and I don't know what the movie is a metaphor for.
I would say that this movie is a metaphor for war, specifically civil war.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, that is there, and the movie actually nods at that several times. That's a good call.
Yeah.
That's a good call. Yeah.
But I could see people coming away from this saying that it's a metaphor for. I've even read online somebody said that this movie is a metaphor for social media. I don't get that, but hey, more power to you.
Social media? That's an interesting one. Yeah. I love it when a movie is deep and nuanced enough that you can lay your own reality over it. And I certainly think this movie, you could say that about this film.
And I think that that's where I'm getting the mother comparison, because like I remember when you and I did that review for Mother, you and I were coming away with completely different metaphors for that movie. Sure. And I think it's beautiful when a movie can do that. It makes it personal to everyone in a unique way. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Well, and the thing this does better than Mother, honestly, is that it's also an authentic, sensical narrative. You know, there's an actual story that makes sense going on here that you could just right on the surface just watch these characters and experience the story that they're going through, and it works really, really well. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, performances. Everybody's great. I mean, everybody is beyond amazing in this movie.
How great is Barry Keoghan in this movie? That character is so good.
That's a supporting actor nom right there.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah, he steals every scene he's in. Like that scene is his, and everybody else is just along for the ride. But I think the fact that in real life, Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson are like best friends. So whenever you see a movie about these guys breaking up as friends, it hits you that much harder because you're like, no, there's something real here. Don't waste it. It's a difficult movie to explain to somebody, even though it's such a on the surface story. Like the guy decides one day he doesn't want to be friends with another guy, and where the movie goes from there, it sounds boring, but this movie is a charcuterie board of emotions. It takes you every which way. I was laughing, I was crying, I was tense, I was like, there were scenes of like just pure anxiety, and then there were scenes where it was just warm and comfortable and just hearty. Yeah. I think that on the surface, this movie does sound boring, but there is so much emotions here. I was never bored. And if there wasn't emotions to keep me there, then the cinematography is extravagant.
Right. I was blown away by the dialogue. I think some of the stuff between the Colin Farrell character and the Brendan Gleeson character, some of that stuff, I can call him Podrick and Colm. That's fine. But they're tete-a-tete at several points through this movie was just captivating. And I love it when a movie can do that. And I do think part of it is because I locked into that Podrick character. I locked into Colin Farrell in a really big way in this optimistic, like, you know, why can't we be, why does this have to end? Like what, you know, like he is definitely the part of that relationship that wants to fight for the relationship. And so I was able to lock into that in some really deep ways and to feel the pain of some of the things the Colm character was saying to him and feel like the intensity of those conversations and what it meant. You know, this movie somehow walks right up to the edge of the over the top cliff, you know, the exaggeration island, and somehow never takes that final step and tumbles into it. It somehow remains grounded while going to some really out there places. And that's a magic trick, and it's done.
Is what it is.
Yeah, and it's done really well here. So yeah.
Carrie Condon, who the entire movie, I am not ashamed to say, I thought it was Rebecca Ferguson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the entire movie, I was like, oh, that's Rebecca Ferguson. Cool. I haven't seen her since she did Fallout. And I was like, then the credits roll. I'm like, oh, well, I feel like a fool. So all that to say, I think that her character is the rock of this entire island, really.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great seeing her try to juggle all of these different people and to get them all to come down to a grounded reality and not do ridiculous, regrettable things.
Yeah.
Like I could see, I think Colin Farrell's Podrick is like technically the older brother, but I think that she is definitely a paternal figure to him.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's so sad in certain scenes that she feels like she has these responsibilities and she can't do the things that she loves, but at the same time, like you're so grateful that she's there.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I mentioned this. We did see this at Fantastic Fest, and the screening afterwards, Martin McDonagh and Carrie Condon were there, and so they came up to the front and chatted a bit. My favorite story from that chat is somebody asked him what his favorite 3 or 5, I don't remember, Irish films were or something like that. And he listed a few, and Carrie Condon said, "You didn't list any of my movies." And he said, "Well, we'll be in better movies then."
Oh my god!
He had several moments like that where it's just like, "Oh, I see your personality. I see you, Martin McDonagh." So yeah, that was fun.
Well, she's in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so take that, Martin McDonagh. You haven't directed anything.
That's right. What Marvel movie would Martin McDonagh direct?
Oh gosh, let's think about this here. If he were to direct a Marvel movie, I would love to see him do. He would have to do a villain movie. I think if they were to do an origin story for Doctor Doom, I think Martin McDonagh could do that.
There you go. You go. I didn't know if there were any famous like Irish superheroes. See,
I was trying. I was racking my brain, but I couldn't think of anything.
There probably
all these white superheroes kind of blend together after a while.
Yeah. I don't have a ton more to say about my love for this film because so much of it is encapsulated in the performances and the dialogue, in my opinion, and the narrative themes, and that's all stuff that we've talked about. Did you have one final thing on this?
I love that I can think about this movie and like, what is the main theme of this movie? Not the metaphor, but the main theme. I'm like, is it? I think what this movie's trying to say, and please, you are the theme metaphor guy, so tell me what you got out of it. But I think what this movie is trying to say is, what is more important, to be remembered or to be kind with the time you have? Like what should be more important to you? And I think that this movie tackles it beautifully.
And it plays into that's what I got out of it as well. In the movie, that theme plays beautifully into the metaphors you mentioned as well. The idea of why do we go to war? Why do these things happen? And often it has to do with legacy. It has to do with pride. It has to do with these same kind of things being remembered instead of focusing on, being kind and I don't think the movie comes down with a distinct point of view or answer to that question. I think it really leaves its characters up there for you to identify with and to say, that I think there are points where the movie is very clearly saying there is something to historical legacy. There is something to being remembered. And there are points where the movie is clearly saying there is something to being kind. There is something to the idea of how we treat each other in the moment being more important than what people remember about us. So I think it says both things. I have a clear worldview and where I land on that discussion, but I don't know that the movie necessarily wants to be pedantic or preachy in that way. And honestly kind of leans into even and this is kind of, my one last thing. And the reason that I do have trouble like fully loving this movie, and why I say maybe the low side of loved it, is it leans into the humans are so flawed that they just can't. Like there is almost a feeling of the inevitability of breakups, the inevitability of destruction and pain and trauma, and which leads to me to something that many people have as a worldview, which is that's why I don't get into deep relationships, because they all just hurt in the end. And so that for me is a sad place to lean the movie. I don't think it gets preachy or pedantic about it, but I do think the movie leans that direction on that question. But maybe not so much it doesn't so much have a lean on the idea of legacy versus kindness. I think it kind of leaves both of those in the air.
Do you have a favorite scene that's not like spoilerish?
Oh, man. Probably no. I honestly don't. I think there's some stuff that goes on in the first confrontation at the bar scene that I think is spectacular. I just think it's so wrought with genuine human conversation and emotion, and but they're I think there are too many scenes for me to pull one out. So
I don't know how he does it, but Martin McDonagh is able to get his actors to portray dialogue in both a realistic and a comedic tempoed way. Like, the back and forth tete-a-tete kind of reminds you, or at least it reminds me of something that Aaron Sorkin would do. Like whenever it's time to be funny, you got that quick tete-a-tete. But then there's also moments of just general, real human conversation. And he jumps back and forth between those two effortlessly.
And this movie is funny, by the way. It's
funny.
Really funny. Not that should be a surprise. I guess another one of my favorites.
Where Colm, every time Colm has to go to confession, slayed me.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
Yeah, the Podrick and Dominic scenes. Like there's a scene where they're sitting out looking and overlooking something. I thought that scene was hilarious and great. So yeah, there's a lot to love. There's a lot to love about this. That is the Banshees of Inisherin. It is in theaters, so you can check it out there if you want to check it out. All right, before we head into the Best Ever Challenge, thank you to our Sif Pop members. As mentioned, we do a Sif Pop members-only pre-show most weeks, and this week we chatted about the DCEU in a couple ways. Number one, Andrew played a game of Who Came First, and I tried to guess whether Marvel or DC had a similar character first. That was a lot of fun. And then and thank you. Spoiler alert, I know more about comics than you might think. And then the rest of the conversation, we talked about James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over the DCEU and what we thought that might mean for DC. So if you're interested in that conversation, might be a reason to check out being a member of Sif Pop. Mainly, from what we hear from our members, they just love the show. They want to support. They want to keep the website and the show going, and that is why they support. If that is you, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/SiftPop to become a Sift Pop member. That is Sift Pop with a T in the middle, SIFTPOP, Sift Pop, patreon.com/SiftPop. All right, let's move into the Best Ever Challenge. Best Ever Mammal Movies. Now, had to clarify this one a little bit. Obviously this is Panther is in Black Panther, and so that's kind of what we're basing this off of. Also Banshee, probably also a mammal, so maybe it applies to both.
I mean, it's an undead woman who shrieks and drives men mad.
Sounds like a mammal to me.
So yeah.
Although we have stipulated non-human mammals. In this one, and it actually is the name of the mammal in the title, not like a character name that is also like Ratatouille would not count, that kind of thing. So All right.
The mammal has to be in the title.
Correct. The species or type of mammal, yes. So we'll go number 5 to number 1. And of course, if one of us has it higher, we'll trump it. All right. So start us off with number 5, Andrew. What do you got at number 5?
I'm going to go with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Good choice. Good choice. Tiger, definitely a mammal.
Yeah. Oh, I was going with dragon. Dang it! I need to know my mammals. This list is going to be
Dragons don't exist, but if they did, I would think they're reptiles. I would guess, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. But no, I think that this is a beautiful, beautiful movie, and I mean that in several ways. Visually, most of all, I think this is gorgeously shot. Just some of the cinematography is just eye-wateringly beautiful, and the way that it's captured. I mean, it's just stellar. The action can transcend between being beautiful and just being like, oh, that's rad. Oh, that's rad. Yeah, great story, and it has a desert in it. I'll say that every single time.
I saw Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon recently. It kind of notched down a little bit, in my opinion. There's some things I don't think that worked quite as well for me this time, but everything you said is true. It is beautiful and well worth a watch.
By the way, every single
for the visual splendor.
1 through 5, my top 5, they're all in my top 100 movies of all time. Guess I like animals.
Cool. I think mine are all in my top 200.
Number 5.
My number 5 is Of Mice and Men.
Oh yeah.
This is the Malkovich-Sinise version of Mice and Men. Those, I think that is primarily why I love this movie. The story is what it is. It's clearly, been around for a long time, and it's powerful and moving and has all that stuff. But watching Malkovich and Sinise do these parts is so good. I love these two together. They kind of came up together in the theater scene, and this is one that's I don't hear a lot of people talking about. That's just always stuck with me. I'm due for a rewatch on this actually, because I haven't rewatched it in a while. But I really really love this movie. So that is my number 5.
It's a good pick. 1992. It's been a hot minute.
Number 4, Andrew.
This might get trumped. Dances with Wolves.
No, had it in my honorable mentions actually.
Okay. Yeah, kind of an interesting take on it's interesting how this film kind of started a genre in itself. Like there's so many different interpretations of this movie. There's Avatar is the big one. Last Samurai, of being introduced to a new culture and seeing one who is trying to escape all of the horrors of the culture, like they're running away from, and then they found a place where everything is new and beautiful, and your future, the possibilities are endless and stuff like that. And it's directed beautifully. It's written. I love the dialogue in this movie. Yeah, great fish out of water experience. Do not be afraid of the runtime of this movie. If that's what's holding you back from seeing it, then you're really missing out on a great movie.
Yeah, it's a must-watch. Dances with Wolves is a must-watch.
Your number 4?
Costner's amazing. My number 4 is Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Take that off my honorable mentions.
I love this movie. I love the Wes Anderson-ness of it all. We've talked about this movie many times before. It is one of my favorites. There is such a place for this kind of creative stop motion animation, kind of feel kind of stuff. And I really love the choices this movie makes, the tone that it has, and the story. So yeah, Fantastic Mr. Fox is one of my faves. You should check it out.
Did you just cuss at me? Did you cuss me? Well, I cuss you.
That's right.
So smart.
Yep.
Number 3, Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah. Yep. I knew this would be on your list.
Yeah, you did. I mean, it's me. Yeah, I think that this is one of Tarantino's best movies. I know he's really grown as a director since since here, and it's hard to believe that the same guy who did this did Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Inglourious Basterds, because not only from like a financial standpoint, you could definitely tell that this was an indie film, but he's really grown into, he's branched out from his intimate movies into more like worldly films. And but I think that there's a lot of magic in this movie that you can see, like, okay, once he really starts to figure out who he is, this guy's going to do great things. But I think that this movie itself is also great.
That is Reservoir Dogs. My number 3 is 12 Monkeys. I had in at number 3.
Just cutting my my honorable mention list down like a treat.
Good. Really interesting performances here from Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. I mention this movie often as a movie that understands the power of using time travel as a non-changing thing, as opposed to non-mutable or immutable, as opposed to being able to change stuff. It is a really interesting look at that, and I think it's fun, interesting, and visually is something it's just a little different. It's got a lot of quirk to it that I really enjoy. So yeah. 12 Monkeys.
Not your average Bruce Willis movie. And it's a very underappreciated one too. Like, I know we on the show, we praise it all the time, but I don't really hear people talking about it all that much.
Yeah. Yep.
Shame. They're missing out.
Number 2.
One of the happiest movies you'll ever see, The Silence of the Lambs.
In my honorable mentions, for sure.
Yeah. We've been talking about Anthony Hopkins a lot lately. This is the movie that let everybody know who he was. And he's stellar. I think that the story of Hannibal Lecter, and how that character's story arc spans over so many different, I guess, properties, not just movies, because they made the show Hannibal and stuff, but how he has had such a lasting impression on society because Anthony Hopkins was so good. I mean, the guy's on screen for less than 12 minutes and he won an Oscar for supporting actor. That's unheard of.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely love this movie.
Totally get it. It was in my honorable mentions for sure.
Your number 2?
My number 2 is The Lion King. And I wonder. So go ahead and talk about it then, because it's your number 1.
Yeah, we're just going to get right on into it. Yeah, it's my favorite hand-drawn animated Disney movie. It's Hamlet or Macbeth. I think it's Hamlet. But anyway, yeah, it's a great adaptation of Shakespeare's work. I think that some of the greatest songs Disney has ever come up with are in this movie. Some of the greatest characters. I think that what's his name? Not Ian. I'm trying to think of who played Scar. If you could help me out here.
Oh, of course, when your brain's put on the spot.
Jeremy Irons, I got it.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons.
I didn't need to look it up, everybody. I knew it. But I think that Scar is like one of the best villains in cinematic history. Yeah, there's just so much right about this movie. It does everything it needs to right. I really can't think of many negatives for it. It's almost a perfect movie.
It is. It's just really good. It is the definition of Disney at their best. And those songs are incredible. The story is incredible. The animation's incredible. Yeah, it's basically a perfect film.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, what did you have at your number 1?
My number 1 is Groundhog Day.
Yep.
And if you've heard me say Groundhog Day at number 1 before in other best ever challenge, there's a reason. It keeps happening over and over again. Groundhog Day is not only fun, it's metaphysical and philosophical in some really deep and interesting ways. This movie has something to say. You add to that the fact that it is so fun and is so funny and is Bill Murray right in his prime best. It's hard hard not to love this movie, and it is one of my all-time favorites. So always going to recommend Groundhog Day as one to check out. So
I'm a god, not the god.
Is this corn hand shucked? So yeah, nice. I could quote Groundhog Day all day.
You could quote it for 10,000 years.
That's right, over and over again, every single day.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions. I'll just run through mine, and then you can pick up any scraps because there's plenty. I also have Disney's The Fox and the Hound. I really love that movie. Dog Day Afternoon is worth mentioning, I think. Wolfwalkers, another animated film, really, really good.
Oh, that came out not too long ago, didn't
it? Not too long ago.
I need to see that.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, certainly worth mentioning. The original Black Panther, I think, should get a shout out. Pig, Nicolas Cage and Pig.
Ooh, good pick.
So good. So very, very good. Wolf of Wall Street, probably worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Power of the Dog, last year's Oscar runner-up. Let's just guess. Lion, really good movie.
You want to talk about a movie that'll make you cry?
Yeah. Lion is that movie. Isle of Dogs, speaking of Wes Anderson. And The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I always like to give a shout out to. That first one's really good.
Very good.
What else did you have?
Great movies. I would just say the other two Planet of the Apes films.
Sure,
are great.
Yeah.
Elephant Man.
Definitely worth mentioning.
That is Anthony Hopkins, man. He loves animal movies, I guess. Not that that's a movie about an animal, but Deer Hunter.
Yep.
It's a happy movie. Nothing bad happens in that movie.
No.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yep.
Yeah. And finally, if you love the Marx Brothers, you have to see Animal Crackers, which is I put it in the honorable mention because Animal,
it's a little broad. It's like a step up for Mammal, not a step, below.
Yeah.
It's like not under the Mammal umbrella. It's above the Mammal umbrella.
All animals are animals, not all animals are mammals.
Thank you. There's the logic of it all.
That is my version of Saving Private Ryan. Right
there. You go.
There you go. Pushed it too far.
So there you go. Our favorite best ever mammal movies. All right, time to hit the buried treasure. I'll go first on this. I want to talk about Andor. I finally caught up on Andor. 10 episodes out, 2 more to go in this first season. I think they are planning 2 12-episode seasons of this show. And this is the second best Star Wars thing I've ever seen. It is so good. We are... At least I am. I think you are as well. Big lovers of Rogue One. Think
it is such a good movie.
Rogue One's a very good movie, and the rumor is that Tony Gilroy basically ghost directed it and saved a lot of what made that movie good. And he's here expanding that story in a way that is so nuanced, so deep. I've heard it said that Gilroy isn't like a huge Star Wars fan. And I think that's kind of what makes this work because the show is not interested as much in cameos and weird aliens and Star Wars stuff. It's interested in here is what happens when a rebellion forms. Here is all the spy stuff that happens. The heist. There's a heist in this show. There's a prison break in this show. There's it's not, and it happens in a Star Wars universe. And there are certainly Star Wars things that are going to give you those goosebumps, but they're handled in such a real world kind of way that it's so good. This show is I've binged it over the last week or so, and I've loved every second of it. The performances are amazing. In case you were wondering, Empire Strikes Back is probably above this, and New Hope is probably just teetering on the same or maybe even just a little bit below. I know that's recency bias, by the way. I'm sure actually eventually Last Jedi may even be better than this, in my opinion. Andrew, keep your mouth shut. But I don't think this is a Last Jedi situation where you're going to hate this and I love it. I think if you like Star Wars at all, and have even been maybe a little bit disappointed in just where the movies have gone, and even Mandalorian's fun. It's a great show, but this is next level. I think this is just high quality television. So
So one of the things that was keeping me from watching, I'll just say up front, I haven't seen anything yet from the show. So I know it's crazy, but I was kind of worried, and it sounds like my my trepidations are misled or unfounded. Is the fact that with prequels, you kind of lack a bit of intensity because you know nothing can happen to your lead character.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like that there's still a lot of suspense and tense moments in the show.
There are so many secondary characters that we immediately understand and love or know that there's always, it's not just about Cassian Andor. Like, it's about all these different people. So yeah, that is not a problem here. As far as I'm concerned, there's plenty of tension and mystery in this for sure. So yeah,
sweet.
It's not only a prequel; it's a prequel series to a prequel movie. So it's like doubling the prequel.
So does this mean that this is? No, I guess never mind. It wouldn't be because yeah, I'm dumb. Never mind.
Okay, all right. High recommend of Andor. Andrew, what do you got?
I got a documentary that came out a couple years ago. Being Evil. It is a documentary on Evel Knievel.
Okay.
I didn't grow up in the Evel Knievel era, but I did grow up in the Robbie Knievel era, his son, and I watched his son do all of those stunts. But I saw that this was available, and I watched it, and I was pleasantly surprised at how well done this documentary is because it doesn't shy away from controversies, and it doesn't try to make the man or the legend any less human, but also it doesn't shy away from saying like, no, the things this guy was doing and the things that he got away with are crazy, and that he was able to survive everything is wild. Like the big thing that they made the distinction on, and that I didn't know going into this, is his son had broken all of his records. But what I didn't know is the reason why he was breaking all of his records is because the type of bike he was using, Robbie Knievel was using, was like specially designed to make these crazy jumps. And that every single one of these jumps that Evil did was like on a regular Harley that weighs like 4 times as much as like everything that Robbie was using. So all of these stunts he was doing were elevated in intensity because of a combination of lack of desire to do the math. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I'm just gonna try it. Hopefully I make it. And a combination of like a lack of desire to have specialized equipment. It shows the how he was not really a great family man. He openly cheated on his wife, like in front of her and stuff. So you're like, oh, he's not a. It doesn't try to paint him as just a perfect guy, but it still shows you all the amazing things. Like everybody remembers the big ones that he did with the Snake Mountain rocket launch, and then the. I'm going to stop here for a second. Did you grow up like watching Evel Knievel, like do stunts and stuff?
Okay, so it's a complex answer. Yes, when I was growing up, I think he was still doing some stunts. Yes, just as a normal human being, I was curious about, wow, that's crazy, doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I also have always been a non-danger person. Like, I don't understand this streak of a lot of humans that is thrill-seeking. Specifically put yourself in danger thrill-seeking. I don't get that. So there's always been an element of I don't care because I don't connect. And if something bad happens to you, your fault. There's I don't know. It's always been hard for me to connect to this kind of stuff. So so I wasn't all that interested, but I do kind of vaguely remember stuff happening. So yeah.
The documentary is pretty heavily narrated and critiqued on by Johnny Knoxville. He's like, this was my hero. Yeah. I know it's perfect. Also, you have George Hamilton, who played Evel Knievel in the movie. It goes over, obviously, all the stunts that he did, all the bones he broke. So, yeah, his I think the big one that everybody knows is is it the Bellagio fountains in Vegas? Is that what they are? Yeah. When he tried to jump those, and he had that crash that everybody thought he died on. But I think it's an interesting documentary to see somebody who I have absolutely nothing in common with. It's crazy to see how wild and different humans can be.
Yeah, totally. That is Being Evil. That is EVEL, by the way. Being Evil, and that is on a lot of places. I think it's on Prime and Peacock and several other places on YouTube for free. So I think it's basically available pretty much anywhere. So that is Being Evil, and then Andor is on Disney Plus. We did it, man! We did a podcast. We didn't even have to jump the Bellagio fountains to make it happen. So
we were dodging bread vans left and right.
Congratulations to us. Thanks so much for joining us today for Sif Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
Much love and gratitude to our Sif Pop members for giving monthly to make Sif Pop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month. You can check all that out at patreon.com/SiftPop. Lots of ways to connect with us. Feel free to leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. You can also email us if you still have email. feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like this show too. So let them know about it and that listening is much easier than supporting the weight of a grown man with 4 tiny foot wings. We will be back next week. I think we're going to maybe talk about the menu. We talked about it a little bit after Ian and I saw it, but I know I would love to hear Andrew's opinions on it, and it goes wide next week. So we may make that main review and kind of double talk about that. Maybe Disenchanted. There are a couple other movies that are coming out. So we'll let you know sooner or later. And thanks for tuning in. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, live chat, for hanging out. Gonk.
In-Game Angel.
Yeah.
Nick. Let's see, who else do we got here?
Lolly was in there for a little bit.
Lolly.
So Nick Tokyo says, all right, if either of the gurus give it a loved it, I'm hitting the IMAX matinee. Well, we didn't. Neither of us gave it a loved it. We both said liked it, but you should still check it out.
Yeah. I could have asked you. Did you see it in just a regular theater? Or did you go like an IMAX?
Just did a regular showing.
Yeah.
Not 3D, not IMAX. So yeah, since I've switched my subscription over from AMC to Alamo, I don't see much stuff in IMAX anymore. And honestly, the IMAX we have here isn't a great IMAX in my opinion. It has some production issues.
Branson is good.
Well, the one at Branson's amazing. Yeah, if I ever wanted to
drive an hour,
drive down, like I am definitely considering doing that for Avatar.
I was gonna tell you, I've been calling them to check because I know that IMAX has premium seats in the back for the even. I was gonna get you and I a ticket for that for Avatar.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm definitely considering it for sure. So yeah, we can do that. All right, thanks guys. We got to run, but we love you all, and we'll catch you on the next one.